Hi everyone, this is Rick with the Tractor Channel. Today I wanted to start a whole series of videos on the, well, they're called a lot of things. Mini bobcat, mini skid steer, mini track loader. The one we're looking at a picture of right here, this is bobcat MT100. And of course the MT stands for mini track. That's how they identify it in their series. And these machines have been on the market. Started out with an MT55, then went to an MT85. Now they're up to the MT100. And basically the differences are they increase the on the MT100 it can actually lift 1,000 pounds with the bucket. So what I want to accomplish in this very first video, and a lot of people have lots of questions. Now, when you buy these brand new, they are expensive. Everything's expensive now, but you're looking at about, I don't know, 34 to 35,000. I think this one was 34.5, and I don't even remember if I got a bucket with it. I don't even think I got a bucket with it. And by the way, I paid for this. It's not sponsored. No one gave me anything for it, you know, for the video or anything. In this video, though, I am going to recommend a company that I just spent 3 days working with. They're called iDig Sales, and what they do is they sell and install, let me show you a picture of some of it here. They sell and install depth systems for excavators. And here's a picture of what the screen would look like, and it's actually pretty neat. On their systems, they're solar, so the sensors all charge solarly, and they are wireless. So you have these three sensors out on your boom, and while you're working during the day, they are charging. There's no wires. Neat thing about it also is that you can say, let's see here, the sensors actually would go here. This is a mini excavator. The sensors, you'd put one here on the boom, and you'd put one on the stick, and then you'd put one down here on your bucket dog or your bucket assembly. And this way you don't have to have a guy on the on your laser stick, on your grade stick all day. You can, that guy doesn't even have to be there to help you to keep on grade. You know how deep you're digging. But the one thing that really we liked about their system is that you can actually change it. Like if you have two excavators, you can actually buy a kit and use the same system on each excavator. It's about $1,200, I think, for the kit, but they can tell you all the prices at idigsales.com. And like I said, when you're digging with it, this is not a very good picture of the screen, but it shows you the configuration of your bucket level, shows you how deep you're digging, you know, from your benchmark. And you don't even have to have anybody in a hole if you're digging a trench or, you know, something like that. And then you can either watch right on your screen there, or you can actually watch this LED display. Tells you, like right now, digging with the green lights on, it's digging, you know, it's at the correct depth, and you can keep pulling your stick. And then down here, it actually tells you left or right if you're trying to set something in that way. But so anyways, let's get back to, well, anyway, those guys are at idigsales.com, and awesome depth digging systems. A lot better than the proprietary ones that you can buy when you actually purchase your mini excavator. But let's get back to this mini skid steer and go through what this first video is going to contain for you guys. It's going to be real simple. What we're going to look at, and the first question that everybody asks when you're even thinking about buying one of these, is what kind of mount is on the bucket? What could I mount to that system? Will I be able to use, okay, say I already have a Coyote tractor, I already have a Kubota tractor with quick attach front bucket. Will I be able to use those buckets on this little mini skid steer. And there's others of you going, why would you want to use a 5-foot bucket or a 6-foot bucket when this, okay, the beauty of these machines on this one right here, it's little under 36 inches wide. This one actually has the narrow tracks on it. You can get a wide track model, I think it's 42 inches, but this bucket is 36 inches wide from outside to outside. So you can go through some pretty small gates with that. Now, if you have, of course, a 42-inch bucket, 44-inch bucket, 5-foot bucket, a 6-foot bucket, you know, off your skid steer, your tractor, you're gonna have to, say you got to do some work in somebody's backyard. Well, you can put your fork attachment on here and put your bucket on there, and then, you know, have your bucket going long ways, go through the gate and use it like that. But there's a lot of different scenarios that why you would want to actually do that. And let me show you one here. Let's see here, where's that picture at? I'm sorry, I'm pretty unorganized for doing this stuff, but say here's an MT100. This has got a 60-inch, and this bucket is actually an old Kubota bucket that came pin style that we actually welded a quick attach onto just to be able to use it for something, because the tractors, you know, get converted to the quick attach, and then these old pin buckets aren't good for anything. But anyways, this is a 60-inch bucket. So say with this mini skid steer, mini track loader, you want to maybe move dirt with it. Say you're loading it with an excavator. So here's a pile of dirt. There's an excavator sitting right behind it. And the guy's taking the dirt with the excavator and then putting it in this bucket right here. And then they're able to move a lot more dirt with that 60-inch bucket versus the 36-inch bucket that you would normally have on there. Now, if you were going to actually do some grading and some real dirt work with that, I would put the 36-inch tooth bucket back on there. It's going to do a lot better than this big, huge bucket. This isn't even a tooth bucket, but for loading and moving dirt, this bucket's really good because it has a real good capacity and it's easier to load with the excavator. Now, another thing to show you here on this one, this is a tilt mechanism off a full-size bobcat or regular size skid steer loader, quick attach, which means it could actually tilt this bucket left or right. And you can see how much wider it is in the actual configuration of the mini skid steer itself. But all I've shown you here with this picture is, you know, if somebody asks, why would you want to put a big bucket on? Well, that's the reason you'd want to put a big bucket on. Or you might want to even put on a full-size grapple on your machine. But let's get back here. And what we're talking about here is this comes with a mini skid steer quick attachment system. Now you see these two levers here, just like the full-size skid steer, just like your Kubota tractor, just like your Coyote tractor, but this is only 30. This whole the male mechanism that goes in the angle on the top is not quite 36 inches wide. This bucket's 36 inches wide, so this part has to be less than 36 inches wide. So a normal, I think, what is the size of that? Say you're, let me bring this picture in right here. So this is a normal size skid steer looking down from the top at where your quick attach hooks up. So this one, you have about, here's the edge of it right here. You're about 45 and a half inches is what is the widest hookup you would be able to get into that in that type of system. Now what I mean by that is when we look at this picture, now this is a mini skid steer. I don't know, that's a mini skid steer. Well, it's an attachment. I think it's an attachment for the hydraulic hammer. So a hydraulic hammer would mount to this. But what I'm getting at here is between these two, between the two edges here, you would have to be about 35.5 to be able to hook up onto this. If you went into this with a full-size skid steer, which you're going to be at like 44.5, you're not going to be able to hook up to a mini skid steer bucket. And what I'll show you here, this picture right here probably explains it a little better. Okay, so in this picture, we're looking at a Land Pride low flow auger, postal auger. It's kind of hard to see, but the auger part and the bits are right over here on the right side. So anyways, this is made for a full-size tractor, you know, Coyote or Kubota. And if you look at it, you can see these, there's 3 holes on the bottom here. The 2 on the outside were there, they came with the 2 on the outside. What had to happen for this to be used on the mini bobcat or the mini skid steer was this angle at the top had to be widened about 6 inches here, because what happens is when you go to hook up into your quick attach, this particular implement was made differently, and some of them I'll show you. I'll try to find some pictures of some other ones, but anyways, to make this implement usable with a mini skid steer, this top part was welded on here and this bottom part right here was welded on. So now I can hook up to the mini skid steer. And the reason being is that, see, your Kubota and your Coyote tractors, for hydraulic flow, they're probably putting out, I don't know, 6 to 9 gallons per minute. It's low flow. But now on the Bobcat MT100, I think it puts out 12 gallons per minute. So you're able to use this on the MT100. It works perfectly fine. Now, if you wanted to use that on a full-size Bobcat, full-size skid steer, you're going to be having too much flow, because a full-size skid steer puts out a lot more flow with the hydraulics. So, and some of them you can turn them down, and then some of the mini skid steers like Vermeer, they actually have 4 outlets on them. They got 2 for the low flow and 2 for the high flow, which is kind of neat. You might look into that kind of system, but really this is fine. The 12 gallons per minute, it works your grapple fine. You can even run a trencher on there. What I'm talking about is these auxiliary hydraulic connections right here. That's where you're going to get your flow for anything you hook up to the front of the MT100 hydraulic wise. Now, when we're looking at this, here's an actual picture of the front of the MT100, and this is what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the width of this hookup plate for the quick attach is going to be less than 36 inches, whereas of course the other ones are going to be bigger. So if you can, you can modify some of your old implements if you want to keep using them, as you know, provided that the MT100 has enough hydraulic flow to be able to use it like that. And then another situation that you get into, and let me see if I have a picture of this. Well, let's do this right here. Let's look at this picture, and this is a hookup for, I mean, this would be the same on any of your mini skid steer, you know, quick attach, this type of system. Now, Dingo, which, you know, the Toro, those are totally different, and it has to say mini skid steer or mini quick attach to be like what I'm showing you the pictures of right here. But this is actually one from Bobcat. I think this is an adapter plate, but you can see that down on the bottom, the 2 holes that hold everything on. Up on the top, you have your angle bracket. Now, if you wanted to use this on a full-size skid steer, you would have to actually it wouldn't work very well. It's harder to go the other direction. It's easier to use the bigger stuff on the small mini skid steers than it is to use the bigger stuff on the small buckets and stuff. Because what you'd have to do to this bucket to use this on a full-size skid steer, you'd have to notch out, let me show you here. You'd have to notch these out. Some implements are going to come with a plate welded across here. And if you have, say on this mini skid steer bucket or attachment right here, you would have to notch that out because your full-size skid steer would be too wide for that. It wouldn't hold in there, and it probably wouldn't hook up on the bottom very well either. Here's another picture of kind of what I'm trying to explain to you here. This is a side shot. Now, this one to use on the mini skid steer, the end of this had to be ground out. You see this triangle part right here? Then the mini skid steer could hook up to that. So like I'm saying, it's easier to use a grapple, a bigger grapple off a skid steer or a tractor on a mini skid steer than it is to go the other way, because you really don't want to be cutting those buckets. Let me show you here. Here's a let's see. Well, let's look at this. This is a forklift assembly, which would work on a full-size skid steer or a Coyote tractor or Kubota tractor. And if you look at the bottom, this plate has 2 holes on each side. So this forklift adapter or forklift, this worked perfectly on the mini skid steer, and it works perfectly on a full-size skid steer or tractor, just by the way it's made. And like I said, when we had to modify this to work on a mini skid steer, I think I can just show you the same 2 pictures up here. Let's see here. Let's if we take this, okay, let's get rid of that one. But here's the forklift attachment that works just fine. And here is the one we had to modify. See how we had to add this part to it on the top and on the bottom, and then on this forklift attachment, all this stuff was already there. So that was great to be able to use that. Didn't have to modify it or anything. So one other thing that in this video I wanted to share with people is sometimes on these mini skid steers, it's kind of hard to get the hydraulic lines loose on these things for some reason. I don't know if it's because the hoses are shorter, or you know, we're in Arizona too. We have a ton of heat here, so you know it's going to build up pressure in the lines. But let's say, so here's the operator's platform on this mini skid steer, and this lever right here allows you to control your grapple, or you know, open you have a bucket on there, you can open or close a bucket if it's hydraulically controlled, or a post hole digger. You can do constant flow by pushing that. There's a pedal on the floor, you can push that pedal and then move that lever forward, and then that flow will continue to dig or go backwards if you pull it backwards, however you want to do that. But anyways, when you look up there and you see this red switch, that switch is a hydraulic pressure relief mechanism. And what it does is you don't have to have the hydraulics running, but you do have to have the key on for this to work. So what you do, here's the key over here on the right, you turn the key on, you press this button and hold it in, and then you move this lever forward and backwards. And what that's going to do is that's going to relieve the pressure in your hydraulic hookup on the front of the MT100. That's going to be these, let's see, where are we looking at here? that's going to be these deals right here. So if you're trying to hook up and it's too hard and you can't do it, if you turn the key on, push that red button, and then move that lever right here, forward and backwards, you're going to be able to relieve that pressure, and you're going to be able to make your hookup a lot better. So sorry if this video is not very good, but trust me, they'll get better. And there's a lot of things we can teach you guys about these mini skid steer loaders, you know, whether it would fit into your operation. What I'm going to tell you, and a lot of people ask me, like, well, do I need a mini skid steer? Do I need a full-size skid steer? Of course, all that kind of stuff, you know, depends on what kind of jobs you're doing. Man, if you're having to get into a backyard and do pool work or sidewalks and stuff like that, these are awesome for that. Can they do the work of a full-size skid steer? No, but they can do a lot of work. You have a 3-foot tooth bucket on there, you can get a lot of work done with it. One of the things that I think is just the best about these machines is I don't like getting in and out of a skid steer. I just think it's a pain in the butt. These you just stand on the back of, and you can get on and off it quickly. People ask, do they tip over easy? And I'm not going to really say they tip over easy, but they, you know, they are only 36 inches wide. So you really do have to use your head. You have to use a lot of common sense. Well, you should use a lot of common sense when you're operating machinery anyways, so you don't damage, you know, somebody's house or fence, or, you know, hurt one of your co-workers. But of course, you know, if you're traveling on a hill with a grade, you want to try to go, you know, straight up the hill or straight down the hill. A lot more often you want to go sideways on the hill. And of course, you know, when you got dirt in that bucket, you're going to want to definitely keep your bucket as low as you can. And, you know, that's really going to help your stability of the machine a lot. There's a lot of things, though. I mean, when you learn to drive, you know, you learn to follow your skid. If you're skidding in ice, you learn, you know, you want to follow your skid to try to get out of the skid. And same way, if you're going on the side of a hill and you even think this thing is going to tip, say the left side is lower, and you feel it starting to tip, you know, first thing when you're operating on the hill, you want your bucket as low as possible, but you might have to abruptly turn downhill to right the problem that you have starting, because they literally will. You feel these things tip a lot, and you kind of get used to it, but there, you know, there's just a lot of things to know when operating these narrow you know, track loaders. So, you know, you definitely want to get used to the machine before you're using it on a job site. But, you know, they're a good machine. You can go with the 42-inch track one, the wide track. It's going to make it a little more stable. But, you know, they're a machine that has its purpose and place on the job. Would I start out with this first versus getting a full-size skid steer? Probably. There's lots of videos on there too, where, you know, a lot of guys, Sean with Gate City Foundation uses he still has an older MT85. James and Mo's blog, James uses a MT100 quite a bit. But there's a lot to learn from watching people, you know, actually use these machines. And I'll do a excuse me, I'll do a bunch of videos and show you some of the things about this. But there really are, there's lots of attachments you can get. I mean, there's, you know, augers, brushes, trenchers, grapples, breakers, hydraulic breaker, which is super handy on these little machines like this. So there's a lot you can do with it. And by the way, if you have any comments, or you have any concerns, or you have questions about maybe you're thinking about buying one of these machines, put it in the comments. I'll definitely answer it. But yeah, I would not hesitate on buying one of these. Okay, this is just a little extra for this video to show you you know, that this machine really can do some work for a little machine, you know, the capacity. And I was also going to point out, now this one, when it came in, when I bought the machine new, it came with these two weights. If you look down in the tracks right here, there's two weights, and also on the back of this, you see there's two more weights mounted. So this machine is set up with the first weight kit, which is 4 weights, 2 on this side and 2 on the other side in the track mechanism here. So those are called your forward weights. Then additionally to that, another option was to buy 4 more weights and put them on the back. And that's what these 2 weights are here on the back, the black weights. Now, the reason you do that is it really does have a strong hydraulic system when you go to make a lift. And you can lift something so heavy that the back end will actually start to rise. So by having the weight kits on there, of course, both of them really helps the kind of like the teeter mechanism of you know, how it actually makes a lift. And when you just have a normal size bucket on here, a 36-inch bucket, and that's full of dirt, you can tell, you know, it's full of dirt, but it's not really any kind of problem for the machine, because this thing's actually capable of lifting 1,000 pounds in normal conditions. Now, what I wanted to show you guys is, hey, I do a lot of welding, I do a lot of weird work, a lot of specialized work, and that's another thing too. I can get into smaller areas to do fence posts, to do work with smaller machines. Everybody, you'll know when you start out, everybody has a 4-ton excavator, everybody has a 10-ton excavator, but if you can get in and do work they can't do, then you kind of got an open. You know, I'm not saying you don't need those size excavators or machines. You do. If you ever look at somebody that's does well in the business, they're going to have a machine for everything they do, because, you know, that's just how it works. But what I wanted to show you on the capabilities, so I do a lot of welding, and what I'm able to do with this is I'm able to put the forklift attachment onto it. Now that's actually a standard size skid steer forklift attachment on this one, and you can see how much wider it is in the machine. Now there is another one that's from Bobcat, made specially for the mini excavator, and I have one of those too, or not for the mini excavator, but for the mini skid steer, and I have one of those too, and it's quite a bit narrower than this. This is a normal sized one you'd see on a standard skid steer, standard Kubota, standard Coyote. But anyways, it's just using it to lift this welder. You know, this welder is sitting on a steel platform, and this is real handy for me because I can take that and put it in the back of a pickup truck, and it stays pretty secure. I don't have to worry about, you know, because it's so wide, I don't have to worry about, you know, strapping the welder down or anything like that. So, and then another thing too to contemplate on these mini track loaders is you're not going to be able to load dirt into a full-size like triaxle dump truck, but you can load into a dump trailer and, you know, the smaller dump trucks just fine. So they actually do got pretty good you know, height. And, you know, look at the specs of the one you're buying. Of course, look at, you know, what you'd have to load your dump trailer. It's going to be a lot lower usually. I don't know how tall your walls are. But, you know, a triaxle dump trailer or dump truck is really super tall. It's hard for a lot of the smaller excavators to even load into. But I just wanted to show you how I was able to move this welder to where I needed it. This welder, this thing weighs every bit of 1,000 pounds. There's 200 feet of like 1/0 welding cable on here. I can be like, I don't know, it might even be more than 200 feet, but I can be a long ways away when I'm trying to get somewhere to weld something, or up welding an I-beam on a structure or something like that. But I just wanted to show you the capabilities of this machine, and for this thing to get to where it got, it actually looks pretty flat, you know, where it's parked right now. But I had to go through a little ravine over here to get to where I am. So that was a little bit sketchy, but you know, if you're careful and you pay attention, and these things also do have a emergency brake too. Like if you ever do really need to stop, there's an emergency brake you can put on until you get the situation figured out. But I just wanted to show you the capabilities of being able to lift this welder. So there you go.